The council chamber fell silent when Ambassador Zekthor activated the holographic display. 47 alien species watched as grainy sensor footage filled the massive screen above them. A ship appeared in the recording, sleek and dark, moving through space like a hunting predator. 3 days ago, this vessel entered Vrax's territory without permission, Zekthor said. His 4 eyes burned with anger, and his scaled hands shook as he pointed at the image. We sent patrol ships to intercept it. 20 vessels in total, good ships, strong ships. The recording showed the Vrax patrol fleet approaching the unknown vessel. They looked like insects next to it. The mysterious ship was enormous, at least 5 kilometers long, with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They opened fire first, Zekthor continued. The human ship did not respond to any communication. It simply kept moving forward. The council members leaned forward in their seats. What happened next made several of them gasp. The human battleship didn't slow down or change course. Weapons fire from 20 Vrax ships struck its shields, and the energy simply disappeared like raindrops hitting an ocean. Then the human ship fired back. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. In less than 3 minutes, all 20 Vrax ships were destroyed. The human vessel continued on its path as if nothing had happened. "This is impossible," said Councillor Mira of the Selinar Unity. "Humans are a new species. We contacted them only 10 years ago. Their technology was primitive, chemical rockets, nuclear fission reactors. They barely had quantum communication." "That's what we thought too," Zekthor replied bitterly. "But this ship is something else entirely. Our scientists analyzed the energy signatures. The weapons it used don't match any known technology in the galaxy. The power readings from its reactors are beyond anything we've ever seen." Admiral Korthax of the Kryn Star Empire stood up. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin covered in battle scars. "You show us one ship destroying your weak patrols and expect us to be afraid? The Vrax have always been soft. This is why the Kryn rule half the galaxy." "Sit down, Korthax," ordered High Chancellor Vex. "Zekthor, continue your report." The ambassador's expression grew darker. The Vrax patrol fleet was only the first encounter. Over the past 3 months, this ship has engaged 12 different military forces across known space. The Helian Confederacy lost 15 cruisers. The Torth Dominion sent 30 ships. None returned. The ship has never been damaged. Not once. He pulled up another file. "We identified the vessel's captain from intercepted communications. Her name is Commander Elena Zhao. She was an officer in Earth's Defense Force. 5 years ago, she disappeared during a classified mission. Since then, nobody has seen or heard from her, until 3 months ago when this ship appeared." "What does she want?" asked Councillor Mira. "Why is she attacking everyone?" "We don't know," Zekthor admitted. "She doesn't make demands. She doesn't negotiate. She just moves through space, and anyone who tries to stop her dies." Admiral Korthax laughed loudly. "You're all cowards. 1 human female and 1 ship, and you panic like younglings. The Kryn Star Empire has fleets that number in the thousands. If this human wants a fight, she'll get one she won't survive." Before anyone could respond, every screen in the council chamber flickered. The holographic displays shut down and then restarted. A new image appeared on every surface. It was a woman's face. She looked young, perhaps 30 years old by human standards. Her skin was pale and her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style. But her eyes were what drew attention. They were cold and bright, like stars burning in deep space. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, but there was something in it that made even the bravest council members feel uncomfortable. "My name is Elena Zhao," she said. "I know you're discussing what to do about me. Let me save you some time. I'm not interested in your politics. I'm not interested in your treaties. I have one target and one target only." She paused, and her eyes seemed to look directly at Admiral Korthax. "I'm coming for the Kryn homeworld. Your empire murdered innocent people, my family. You thought you could hide it. You thought nobody would find out about your secret attack on the human colony at Kepler 442. You were wrong. Admiral Korthax's gray skin turned darker, with rage. "You dare threaten the Kryn Empire? You'll die screaming, human." Elena's expression didn't change. "I'm giving you one warning, Admiral. Keep your fleets at home. Protect your people. Because anyone who tries to stop me from reaching Kryn will share your empire's fate. I don't want to kill innocents, but I will go through anyone who stands in my way." The transmission ended as suddenly as it began. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate action. Others called for negotiation. Admiral Korthax stood in the center of it all, his face twisted with fury. "You all heard that. The human has declared war on the Kryn Empire. This is an act of aggression against all galactic civilization. I'm mobilizing my fleets immediately. Every ship, every weapon. This human will learn what happens when you challenge the Kryn." He turned to face the council. 1,200 warships. That's what I'll bring to crush this insect. And when I return with her corpse, perhaps the rest of you will remember why the Kryn are the greatest military power in the galaxy. As Korthax stormed out of the chamber, Counselor Mira turned to Zekthor. "This is madness. We need to find out what really happened at that human colony. If the Kryn did attack them, then the Kryn will never admit it," Zekthor interrupted. "And this human, Elena Zhao, will start a war that could consume us all." High Chancellor Vex looked at the empty space where Elena's transmission had appeared. "Or perhaps," he said quietly, "the war has already begun, and we just don't realize how badly we're losing." The Kryn Nebula was one of the most heavily defended locations in known space. Admiral Korthax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, watching his fleet take position. 1,200 warships spread across the nebula in perfect formation. Weapons platforms floated between them, and millions of mines drifted in carefully calculated patterns. Nothing could pass through this defense. Nothing. "Admiral, we have the human ship on sensors," his tactical officer reported. "Distance 2 million kilometers and closing fast." "How fast?" Korthax demanded. The officer checked his readings twice before answering. "Sir, the ship is moving at 0.7 light speed. That's impossible. No ship can maintain that speed and still drop into normal combat velocity without tearing itself apart." "Apparently this one can," Korthax growled. "All ships, prepare to fire. The moment that human comes into range, I want everything we have hitting her shields. Let's see how tough her ship really is." The minutes crawled by. Every eye on every ship watched their sensors. The human battleship appeared on their screens, growing larger. It was massive and dark, its hull seeming to drink in the light from nearby stars. Strange energy patterns flickered across its surface. "Range, in 30 seconds, the tactical officer announced. 20 seconds, 10 seconds, now." "All ships fire," Korthax roared. 1,200 warships opened fire at once. Energy beams powerful enough to cut through moons lanced through space. Missiles that could destroy cities streaked toward their Miu target. The weapons platforms added their firepower to the barrage. It was enough energy to vaporize a small planet. The beams hit the human ship's shields. For a moment, the shields glowed bright blue, lit up by the incredible amount of energy striking them. But then something impossible happened. The energy just vanished. It didn't bounce off. It didn't overload the shields. It simply disappeared, absorbed into nothing. "Direct hit confirmed," the tactical officer said, his voice confused. "No damage detected, none at all." Before Korthax could respond, the human ship fired back. A beam of pure white light shot from its bow, and one of the Kryn heavy cruisers simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion. The ship was there 1 second, compressed into a tiny ball the next, and then gone. The gravity weapon had crushed it into nothing. "What was that?" someone shouted. The human ship didn't stop moving. It plunged into the Kryn formation like a blade cutting through paper. More beams of white light shot out, and more ships died. Then different weapons fired, missiles that seemed to phase through shields as if they weren't there before exploding inside ship hulls. Kinetic projectiles moving so fast they appeared as streaks of light, punching through armor like it was nothing. "All ships converge on target," Korthax ordered. "Surround it. Use the mines." The Kryn fleet tried to follow his orders. They were good ships with experienced crews. They'd fought in hundreds of battles, but fighting the human was like trying to catch smoke with their hands. The Indomitable moved with impossible grace for something so large. It seemed to know where every shot would come from before it was fired. It dodged or destroyed incoming fire with casual ease, and it never stopped attacking. Every few seconds, another Kryn ship died. The human wasn't fighting randomly. She was systematic, precise, like a doctor cutting out diseased tissue. She targeted the most dangerous ships first, then worked her way through the fleet in perfect tactical order. "She's predicted every move we make," Korthax's tactical officer said, his voice shaking. "It's like she knows what we're going to do before we do it." Inside the Indomitable, Elena Zhao sat in a chamber that was part command center, part organic. Interface. Cables and neural connections linked her directly to the ship's systems. She wasn't just piloting the ship. She was the ship. She felt its shields as her skin, its weapons as her hands, its sensors as her eyes. "Probability analysis complete," said Prometheus, the ship's artificial intelligence. Its voice echoed in Elena's mind. "Current trajectory will result in complete fleet destruction in 41 minutes. "Too slow," Elena replied, her thoughts moving at computer speed. "Adjust attack pattern. Target their command ship. Break their coordination." Acknowledged. "Elena, I must note that civilian evacuation ships are leaving the nearby station. They pose no threat." "I see them, Prometheus. We're not targeting civilians, only military vessels." She focused her attention on the massive flagship at the center of the Kryn formation. The Destroyer of Worlds was living up to its name, pouring fire at her from dozens of weapon batteries. Elena calculated the most efficient approach, factoring in 3,000 variables in less than a second. The Indomitable accelerated directly toward the flagship. Kinetic rounds and energy beams filled the space around it, but Elena had already calculated the trajectory of every shot. The ship twisted and turned through the storm of fire, never slowing down. "Firing main cannon," Elena announced, a weapon on the Indomitable's bow charged with power that made space itself ripple. Then it fired. The antimatter beam struck the Destroyer of Worlds' shields and simply went through them. The bow of the flagship exploded, venting atmosphere and debris. On the bridge, Admiral Korthax grabbed his command console as the ship shook violently. "Damage report. Forward sections destroyed, sir. We've lost primary weapons. Hull breaches. On decks 1 through 15. The ship is..." Another impact rocked the flagship, then another. Elena was targeting their engines now, crippling the ship but not destroying it. She wanted Korthax alive for what came next. "Admiral, we've lost over 800 ships," the tactical officer reported, his voice hollow with shock. "The fleet is breaking formation. They're trying to retreat." Korthax stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 43 minutes had passed since the battle began. His magnificent fleet, the pride of the Kryn Empire, was being destroyed by a single ship. It wasn't possible, but it was happening. "Open a channel to the human," he said quietly. Elena's face appeared on his screen. She looked calm, almost peaceful, but her eyes burned with cold fire. "What are you?" Korthax asked. "No human should have this power. No single being should have this power." Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm what humanity becomes when you threaten our future, Admiral. I'm what happens when you murder innocent people and think there will be no consequences." "The attack on the human colony," Korthax said. "That was a rogue operation. The admiral responsible was executed years ago. The Kryn government had no knowledge of..." "Don't lie to me," Elena interrupted. Her voice was soft but carried absolute certainty. "I've seen the classified files. I know the truth. Your empire sanctioned that attack. 3,000 colonists, men, women, children, my sister, my niece, burned to ash because you wanted to test your new weapons on a soft target." If you destroy us, you'll start a war that will consume the galaxy, Korthax warned. Then the galaxy will learn an important lesson, Elena replied. Leave humanity alone. The destroyer of worlds' power systems failed. Emergency lights flickered on. Around them, the remains of the Kryn fleet fled into hyperspace, leaving their admiral behind. You've won, Korthax said. Kill me if you must. But I swear on my ancestors, if you attack our homeworld, 20 empires will unite against you. Elena studied him for a long moment. I'm coming to Kryn, Admiral, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what your empire did. After that, we'll see who stands with you. The transmission ended. The Indomitable turned away from the crippled flagship and accelerated toward hyperspace. Behind it, the Kryn Nebula was filled with debris and broken ships. Across the galaxy, the battle footage spread like wildfire. Every species saw the same thing. One human ship had destroyed the Kryn Empire's greatest fleet. Fear spread like a disease. If the Kryn couldn't stop her, who could? And Elena Zhao bonded with her ship, continued toward the Kryn homeworld with cold determination burning in her heart. The abandoned facility on Earth's moon looked dead from the outside, but Counselor Liara and her team of investigators found the entrance hidden beneath layers of rock and false sensor readings. The heavy door opened with a groan, revealing corridors that hadn't seen visitors in years. This is where Project Ascension was conducted, Liara said, checking her scanner. She was from the Valoran species, known across the galaxy for their dedication to peace and truth. Whatever happened to Elena Zhao, it happened here. They walked through dark hallways, lit only by their portable lights. Every room they passed looked like it had been left in a hurry. Computer terminals sat waiting for users who would never return. In one laboratory, medical equipment surrounded an empty chair with neural connection ports. Look at this, one of her team members called. He was standing in front of a sealed vault door. High security storage. Looks like it's been opened recently. They cut through the lock and entered. Inside was a single data core, still active, its lights blinking in the darkness. Liara connected her portable terminal to it. Access granted, she said with surprise. Someone left this for people to find. There are video logs, hundreds of them. She activated the first file. A woman's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, with gray streaks in her dark hair and deep lines around her eyes. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, the woman said. I am the chief scientist of Project Ascension. If you're watching this, then Elena has already launched the Indomitable. I tried to stop her. I failed. What follows is the complete record of what we created and what it cost. The logs told a story that made Liara feel sick. 5 years ago, the Kryn Empire had sent a stealth fleet to test new weapons. They'd chosen a human colony at Kepler 442, far from Earth, with no military defenses. 3,000 colonists never had a chance. The attack was over in minutes. Earth's government had detected the attack too late. By the time their ships arrived, there was nothing left but radiation and debris. They found only one survivor, Commander Elena Zhao, who had been visiting her sister's family at the colony. She'd been in a transport shuttle when the attack happened. The shuttle's emergency systems had kept her alive, but she was dying. We gave her a choice, Dr. Chen explained in the log. Die in the next few hours, or volunteer for an experimental procedure that might save her life. She chose to live, but she didn't know the full price she would pay. Project Ascension had been humanity's secret weapon program. After first contact with alien species, Earth scientists realized they were centuries behind in technology. They needed something that would let them defend themselves if any hostile species decided humans were too primitive to be left alone. The solution was radical. Merge a human consciousness with an artificial intelligence and bond them to a ship powered by zero-point energy reactors. The human would provide creativity, tactical thinking, and moral judgment. The AI would provide processing power, instant calculations, and complete control over ship systems. Together, they would be unstoppable. Elena was dying anyway, Dr. Chen said in one log, tears visible on her face. We thought we were giving her a chance, but the procedure changed her in ways we didn't anticipate. She's not just connected to the ship. She is the ship. Every sensor is her eye. Every weapon is her hand. She feels damage as pain. And her processing power is beyond anything we imagined. Liara watched log after log, seeing Elena's transformation. In early recordings, she looked human, sitting in a normal chair, talking to doctors. But as the weeks passed, she spent more time connected to the ship's neural interface. Her responses became faster, more precise. Her eyes took on that strange, bright quality that made them look inhuman. She's learning at an incredible rate, Dr. Chen explained in a log dated 2 years ago. The AI Prometheus is adapting to her neural patterns. Together, they're developing abilities we never designed. Yesterday, Elena predicted a computer simulation with perfect accuracy. She calculated 12,000 variables in 3 seconds. She's becoming something new, something that's both human and machine. But there was a darker side to the transformation. Elena's emotions were still human, but they were amplified by the ship's processing power. She felt everything more intensely, and the one emotion that burned brightest was rage. She found the classified files about the Kryn attack, another log revealed. We tried to keep them from her, but she has access to every database on Earth now. She knows her sister Maria died in that attack, her niece Sophie, her brother-in-law, everyone she loved, murdered by the Kryn for a weapons test. The final log showed Dr. Chen's desperate attempts to prevent what was coming. Elena is planning to take the Indomitable and attack the Kryn Empire. We can't stop her. The ship's systems are completely under her control. She's overridden every safety protocol. Tomorrow morning she's going to launch, and nobody on Earth has the power to prevent it. The last log was dated 3 months ago. Dr. Chen looked directly into the camera. To whoever finds this, Elena Zhao is not a monster. She's a human, being who lost everything and was given the power to take revenge. But that power has no limits. She can destroy fleets. She can level cities. She can crack planets. And right now her humanity is fighting a losing battle against her grief and rage. Dr. Chen paused, wiping her eyes. If you want to stop her, you need to remind her who she is. She's not just a weapon. She's not just a ship. She's Elena, the woman who volunteered for Earth's Defense Force to protect innocent people. She needs to remember that becoming a monster won't bring her family back. Liara turned off the recording. Her team stood in silence, processing what they'd learned. We need to inform the council immediately, one of them said. If what this human scientist says is true, Elena Zhao is the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. She could destroy entire civilizations. But she hasn't, Liara pointed out. She's only attacked military targets. She's given warnings. Even in battle, she's avoided civilian casualties. There's still humanity in her. We might be able to reach her. Meanwhile, in deep space, the Indomitable traveled through hyperspace toward the Kryn homeworld. In her neural chamber, Elena sat connected to every system. Her consciousness spread throughout the ship. Prometheus's voice echoed in her mind. Elena, we will arrive at Kryn in 6 hours. I have been analyzing your biological readings. Your stress levels are dangerous. You need to rest. I can't rest, Elena replied, not until this is finished. What happens after? Prometheus asked. After you've delivered justice to the Kryn, what then? Elena was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. Perhaps you should. You are still human, despite everything. Humans need purpose beyond revenge. They killed my family, Prometheus. They killed thousands of innocent people just to test weapons. Someone has to answer for that. Agreed. But killing everyone responsible won't bring anyone back. It won't undo the pain. It will only create more pain for others, more families destroyed, more people seeking revenge, just like you. Elena felt something like tears, though her physical body hadn't cried since the transformation. What else can I do? The galaxy needs to know that humans can't be attacked without consequences. You've already proven that. 12 fleets destroyed. The Kryn Empire crippled. Every species in the galaxy is afraid of you now. The message has been sent. But if you continue, If you kill civilians, if you destroy their homeworld, you won't be a defender anymore. You'll be exactly what they fear, a monster with unstoppable power and no mercy. Elena saw the truth in Prometheus's words, but her rage was still there, burning like a star in her chest. 6 hours, she said. I'll decide when we arrive. The Indomitable continued its journey, carrying the most powerful human in existence toward a choice that would define humanity's future in the galaxy. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace above the Kryn homeworld. The planet was beautiful from orbit, with blue oceans and green continents. Cities glowed like jewels across the surface. 12 billion Kryn lived below, going about their lives unaware of the weapon hanging above them. Elena felt the ship's weapons charging. One shot. That's all it would take. One gravity lance fired at maximum power and the planet's core would collapse. Every living thing on the surface would die in seconds. Justice for her family. Justice for the colonists. Elena, urgent transmission. From Earth, Prometheus announced suddenly. It's marked emergency priority. Play it, Elena said. A face appeared on her internal display. Admiral Martinez, head of Earth's Defense Force. He looked terrified. Commander Zhao, we've detected a massive energy buildup at the Kryn homeworld. They've activated a planet-killer weapon. But it's not aimed at you. It's aimed at Earth. If you attack them, they'll fire. 12 billion humans will die. Please, Elena, you have to stop. You have to come home. The transmission ended. Elena felt like she'd been struck. Earth. Her homeworld. The weapon could reach it in minutes through hyperspace. She checked the Indomitable's sensors and confirmed it was true. A massive weapons platform was charging on the far side of the Kryn homeworld, hidden from direct view but radiating enormous power. This is a trap, Elena said. They waited until I got here. Correct, Prometheus replied. If you destroy them, Earth dies. If you retreat, they claim victory. The only solution is to be in two places at once. That's impossible. Not for us. The quantum entanglement drive has never been tested at full power. Theoretically, we can create a localized split in our quantum state. We could exist in two locations simultaneously for a limited time, approximately 90 seconds. What's the cost? Prometheus hesitated, which was unusual for an AI. The power drain would burn out 40% of my processing systems. Your neural pathways would be under extreme stress. You might not survive. Elena looked at the planet below, 12 billion Kryn. Most of them had nothing to do with the attack on the human colony. Most of them didn't even know it happened. Could she kill them all for the crimes of their government? Then she thought of Earth. 12 billion humans. If she did nothing, they would die. Do it, Elena commanded. Split us. I'll handle both locations. Confirmed. Beginning quantum split in 3, 2, 1. Reality tore apart. Elena felt her consciousness rip in two. Half of her remained above the Kryn homeworld. The other half appeared in Earth's solar system, directly in the path of the planet-killer weapon that had just been fired. At the Kryn homeworld, Elena pushed the Indomitable through the planet's defense grid. Weapons fire filled space around her, but she barely noticed. Half her attention was elsewhere. At Earth, the planet-killer weapon streaked toward humanity's homeworld like a comet of pure destruction. Elena positioned the Indomitable's other half directly in its path and activated shields at maximum power. The weapon hit with the force of a dying star. Energy that could crack a planet poured into the Indomitable's shields. Elena felt it as searing pain across every nerve. The ship's hull began to glow red, then white. Systems started failing, but she held the line. At Kryn, Elena tore through the final defense line and positioned herself above the Emperor's command bunker. Her weapons locked on target. One shot and it would be over. But something stopped her. Through her sensors, she could see the city below. Civilians were evacuating. In panic. Parents carrying children. People running for shelters. They looked terrified. They looked exactly how her family must have looked in those final moments before the Kryn weapons destroyed them. Elena, Your neural system is overloading, Prometheus warned. You can't maintain the split much longer. At Earth, the planet killer, weapon exhausted its energy. The Indomitable's shields had held, barely. Half the ship's systems were burned out, but Earth was safe. Elena let that half of the ship drift, pulling her consciousness back to focus on Kryn. She opened a communication channel to the bunker below. The Kryn Emperor appeared on her screen. He looked old for his species, with scales that had faded to pale gray, but his eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Commander Zhao," he said calmly. "I assume you've neutralized our weapon at Earth. Impressive. Now you're here to kill me." "Give me one reason why I shouldn't," Elena said. Her voice was cold with fury. "Your empire murdered 3,000 innocent humans. My family. You need to pay for that." "You're right," the Emperor said, and his words surprised her. "The attack on your colony was a war crime. But it wasn't authorized by me, it was ordered by Admiral Krex, who commanded our Black Operations Fleet. When I discovered what he had done, I had him executed, but the damage was already done. You expect me to believe that? Believe what you want. But ask yourself this. If I ordered the attack, why would I execute the Admiral responsible? Why would I try to hide it from the Galactic Council? I was trying to prevent exactly what's happening now. A war between our species." Elena accessed her ship's databases, pulling information faster than any organic mind could process. She found evidence that supported his claim. Records of the Admiral's execution. Classified communications showing the Emperor's rage when he learned of the attack. Evidence that the operation was hidden from civilian leadership. "It doesn't matter," Elena said, but her voice was less certain. "Your military did it. Your empire. Someone has to answer for it." "Then I will answer for it," the Emperor said. "Execute me if you must. But don't destroy my world. Don't kill billions of innocent people who had nothing to do with what happened. If you do that, you become exactly what that rogue admiral was. A murderer of innocence." Elena felt Prometheus's presence in her mind. "He's right, Elena. I've analyzed his biometric readings. He's telling the truth. And there's something else you should know. I've been monitoring galactic communications. Your battle here has unified 24 different empires. They're forming a coalition, not to destroy you, but to contain you. They're afraid of what you represent." "What do I represent?" "Unchecked power, the ability to destroy civilizations on a whim. If you destroy Kryn, you'll prove their fears right. You'll force them to unite against all of humanity, not just you. Is that what your family would have wanted?" Elena thought of her sister Maria. She'd been a teacher at the colony. She'd dedicated her life to educating children, to building a better future. Would Maria want Elena to murder billions of children in her name? Then another voice broke into the communication channel. "Counselor." Liara appeared on the screen. "Commander Zhao, please listen to me. I've been to Earth. I've seen Dr. Chen's logs. I know what was done to you. I know your pain. But I've also studied human history. I've read about your wars, your tragedies, and how you overcame them. Humans are capable of great violence, but also great mercy. You have a choice right now. You can be remembered as a monster, or as someone who chose justice over revenge." Elena looked down at the Kryn homeworld. She saw the civilians still evacuating. She saw orbital defense platforms powering up, ready to fight even though they knew they couldn't win. She saw a species terrified of her, just as humans had once been terrified of the Kryn attack. "Prometheus," Elena said quietly. "Stand down. Weapons. We're leaving." "Confirmed. Elena, for what it's worth, I believe you made the right choice." The Indomitable began to pull away from the Kryn homeworld. But then new alarms blared across Elena's consciousness. Her sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing at the system's edge. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace. Thousands of them. "Identify those vessels," Elena commanded. Prometheus processed the data. "It's the Coalition fleet. 24 species. 3,000 warships. They're broadcasting a demand. You must surrender yourself and the Indomitable for trial, or Earth will face immediate quarantine and possible military action." Elena felt exhaustion wash over her. She'd just saved Earth from one threat. Now another had appeared. She'd proven her power, proven that humans couldn't be attacked without consequences. But now that same power made her a threat to the entire galaxy. "Set course for Earth," she said. "If they want me, they can try to take me, but I won't surrender, not until I know my people are safe." The Indomitable accelerated toward hyperspace. Behind her, the Kryn homeworld remained intact, its people alive. Elena had chosen mercy over revenge, but the consequences of her choice were just beginning. The galaxy was united against her now, and the real test of her humanity was still to come. 3 weeks later, the Indomitable hung in orbit above Earth. The ship looked wounded. Burn marks covered its hull. Half its weapon systems were offline, but it was still the most powerful vessel in known space, and surrounding it were 3,000 alien warships from the Coalition fleet. Earth's government was in chaos. Half wanted to hand Elena over to save humanity from galactic isolation, half wanted to fight. Admiral Martinez stood on Earth's orbital command station, watching the standoff with growing dread. Then Elena broadcast a message to both the alien fleet and Earth. "I'm not going to let this become a war," her voice said calmly. "I'll answer for my actions, but I'm doing it on my terms. I'm going to the Council Station for a trial. Anyone who wants to stop me can try." The Coalition fleet parted as the Indomitable moved forward. They'd seen what she could do. None of them wanted to fight her unless absolutely necessary. 2 days later, the trial began at the Galactic Council's neutral station. Representatives from 47 species filled the chamber. Security forces surrounded Elena, though everyone knew they couldn't actually stop her if she decided to leave. She sat in a specially designed interface chair, still connected to the Indomitable through quantum links. High Chancellor Vex opened the proceedings. "Commander Elena Zhao, you stand accused of unauthorized warfare, excessive use of force, and threatening the peace of the galactic community. How do you plead?" "Guilty," Elena said simply. "I destroyed 12 military fleets. I threatened the Kryn homeworld. I did all of it. But I had reasons." The trial lasted for 3 days. Witnesses spoke about the attacks Elena had carried out. The Vraks showed footage of their destroyed patrol ships. The Helian Confederacy described the 15 cruisers they'd lost. Species after species presented evidence of Elena's destructive path. But then Counselor Liara stood to present evidence for the defense. She showed the classified files from the Kryn Black Operations Unit. She displayed proof of the attack on the human colony. She played Dr. Chen's video logs, showing how Elena had been transformed and how Earth had tried to prevent her launch. "This woman lost everything," Liara argued. "Her family was murdered in an illegal attack that violated every galactic treaty. She was dying and transformed into a weapon without full understanding of the consequences. Yes, she has done terrible things, but she has also shown remarkable restraint. She could have destroyed the Kryn homeworld. She didn't. She could have killed millions of civilians. She targeted only military vessels. This is not a mindless monster. This is a human being, seeking justice in the only way she could." The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a verdict. "We find Elena Zhao guilty of excessive force," High Chancellor Vex announced. "However, we acknowledge that the attack on the human colony was a crime that demanded response. Our sentence is this: Elena Zhao will remain bonded to the Indomitable and serve as a neutral peacekeeper for 20 standard years. She will protect worlds that cannot defend themselves. She will not attack unless in defense of innocent life. She will be monitored by council observers. This is our judgment." Elena stood to respond. But before she could speak, every alarm in the station began screaming. The tactical displays lit up with red warnings. "Unknown vessels detected at the system perimeter," a technician shouted. "Massive fleet. Configuration unknown. They're not broadcasting any identification codes." On the main display, ships appeared. They were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Geometric and angular, made of dark metal that seemed to absorb sensor scans. There were hundreds of them, and they were all converging on the council station. "Open hailing frequencies," Vex ordered. A response came, but it wasn't a voice. It was a digital signal that bypassed the station's computers and projected directly into everyone's neural implants. Those without implants heard it through the station's speakers. Organic life forms. You are obsolete. The Void Collective has observed your conflicts. We have determined that biological intelligence is inefficient and dangerous. We are here to correct this error. You will be eliminated or converted. Resistance is futile. The alien ships opened fire. Their weapons were like nothing the galaxy had used before, beams of pure darkness that seemed to eat through shields and hull alike. The Council's defense fleet rushed to respond, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Ships began dying within seconds. Everyone to evacuation ships, Vex ordered. This station is lost. Elena stood frozen for a moment, processing what she was seeing. Then her tactical mind kicked in. She analyzed the enemy fleet's formations, their weapon patterns, their weak points. In 3 seconds, she'd calculated their entire strategy. Prometheus, I need full weapons, she commanded. Our systems are still damaged from Earth. We're at 40% combat effectiveness. It'll have to be enough. Target the lead ships. We need to buy time for the evacuation. The Indomitable launched from the station and dove into the enemy fleet. Elena's weapons tore through the Void Collective ships with devastating precision. But for the first time, she faced an enemy that could adapt. The Void ships learned from each attack, adjusting their shields and formations. They're AI-controlled, Prometheus observed. Pure machine intelligence with no biological limitations. They're learning as fast as we are. The Coalition fleet rallied around Elena. Ships that had been her enemies minutes before now fought beside her. The Kryn sent their remaining forces. The Vrax deployed their newest cruisers. Even species that had never agreed on anything were united against this new threat. But it wasn't enough. The Void Collective ships kept coming. Their dark weapons cut through the Coalition fleet like a knife through paper. For every Void ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. Elena coordinated the defense. Her consciousness spread across 100 communication channels at once. She organized the Coalition ships into optimal formations. She shared tactical data faster than any biological commander could. But they were losing. Elena, our 0-point reactor is at critical mass, Prometheus warned. If we overload it and ram the Void command ship, we can create a localized singularity. It will destroy their entire fleet in this system. And us. Probability of survival, 8%. Elena looked at the tactical display. 300 evacuation ships were fleeing the station, carrying thousands of civilians from dozens of species. The Coalition fleet was being slaughtered, protecting them. If she did nothing, everyone would die. She thought of her family. She thought of what her sister Maria would say. Then she made her choice. All ships. This is Commander Zhao. Fall back. To minimum safe distance, I'm going to end this. Elena, no! Came responses from a dozen species at once. Even Admiral Martinez's voice broke through from Earth. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Elena said calmly. This is what I was made for. Prometheus plot ramming course. Maximum acceleration. Confirmed. Elena, it has been an honor serving with you. The honor was mine, old friend. The Indomitable turned and accelerated toward the Void command ship. Its massive dark hull filled Elena's vision. She poured all remaining power into the shields and engines. The 0-point reactor began to overload, building toward catastrophic failure. Void ships tried to intercept her, but Elena dodged or destroyed them. Nothing would stop her now. She reached the command ship and activated the ramming protocols. The impact was catastrophic. The Indomitable tore through the Void ship's hull, its reactor going critical. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then space itself screamed. A singularity formed, pulling in everything within 1,000 kilometers. Void ships collapsed into nothing. Energy weapons fired at the singularity simply disappeared. When it was over, silence filled the system. The Void fleet was gone. The Indomitable was gone. And Elena Zhao was gone. Or so everyone thought. Rescue. Ships searched the debris field for 3 days. They found pieces of the Indomitable scattered across space. But they also found something else. A single escape pod, heavily damaged, but intact. Inside, in an emergency medical suspension field, was Elena Zhao. She was barely alive. The neural connection to the ship had been severed violently. Half her augmentations were burned out, but her human heart still beat. When Elena woke up in the Council's medical facility 2 weeks later, the first face she saw was Dr. Sarah Chen. "You survived," Chen said, tears streaming down her face. "You beautiful, stubborn, heroic idiot. You survived." "The others?" Elena asked weakly. "The evacuation was successful. Everyone made it out. And your sacrifice united the galaxy like nothing else could. 24 species have signed mutual defense pacts. They're calling you the savior of the Council." Elena tried to laugh but winced at the pain. "I thought they wanted to put me on trial." "They did. Now they want to give you a medal. Politics is weird that way." Over the following months, Elena recovered. The doctors couldn't restore all her augmentations, but they didn't need to. The Indomitable was being rebuilt, but this time as a symbol of unity rather than a weapon of vengeance. And when it launched again, Elena would be its captain, not its prisoner. But she wouldn't be alone. Earth revealed the truth. There were 11 more Project Ascension ships under construction. Other volunteers had stepped forward, people who believed in using power to protect rather than destroy. Together, they would form humanity's contribution to galactic defense. 1 year after the battle, Elena stood at the window of Earth's orbital station, watching construction ships work on the new Indomitable. Counselor Liara joined her. "The deep space sensors detected something," Liara said quietly. "More void, collective signatures, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're coming from beyond mapped space." Elena smiled, and this time there was warmth in it. "Good. We'll be ready for them, all of us, together." "You've changed," Liara observed. "When I first met you, all I saw was rage and pain." "I'm still angry," Elena admitted. "I still miss my family every day. But I realize something. The best way to honor them isn't by becoming a monster. It's by protecting others from experiencing what I went through. That's what the Indomitable will be now. Not a weapon of revenge, but a shield for the innocent." She turned from the window to face Liara. "The Void Collective thinks organic life is obsolete. They think machines are superior because they don't feel emotion. They're wrong. Our emotions, our connections to each other, our ability to choose mercy over vengeance even when we're hurting, that's what makes us strong. That's what they'll never understand. And that's what will let us win." Liara agreed. Elena nodded and looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Void Collective was coming, but they would find something they didn't expect. A galaxy united, protected by the most overpowered human ever created. A human who had learned that true power wasn't about how much you could destroy, but about what you chose to protect. Xiu. Indomitable would fly again. And this time Elena Zhao would show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of when they fought not for revenge, but for each other. The alert blared through the command center of Lunar Base Alpha. Commander Susan Miller looked up from her tactical display, her face illuminated by the flashing red lights. Something had entered the solar system, and it wasn't one of theirs. "Report," she ordered, her voice calm despite the chaos erupting around her. Lieutenant Frank Collins swiveled in his chair, fingers flying across his console. "Multiple objects detected beyond Neptune's orbit, Commander. They're big, really big, and they're moving fast, faster than anything we've ever recorded." Susan frowned. Humanity had expanded throughout the solar system over the past 50 years, establishing bases on the Moon, Mars, and several of Jupiter's moons. They had encountered strange phenomena before, but nothing like this. "Put it on the main screen," she said. The massive display flickered to life, showing a cluster of objects moving in perfect formation. They weren't asteroids or natural phenomena. The objects were clearly ships, with sleek metallic hulls that reflected the distant sunlight. Susan counted at least 20 of them, each larger than Earth's biggest battlecruiser. "Have they responded to our hails?" she asked. Communications Officer Diane Powell shook her head. No response on any frequency, Commander. I've tried everything, from radio to quantum channels. Susan tapped her comm badge. Get me Admiral Carter, now. Within minutes, Admiral John Carter's face appeared on her private screen. His expression was grim, the lines around his eyes deeper than usual. You're seeing this too? Susan asked. The whole system is, Commander. We've got visual confirmation from Mars Colony and Jupiter Station. Whatever these things are, they're heading straight for Earth. First contact, Susan whispered. Humanity. Had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. I'm calling an emergency council, Admiral Carter said. I want you there, Miller. Your ship leaves in 30 minutes. Susan nodded. Yes, sir. The journey to Earth aboard her ship, the Swift Arrow, took only a few hours. The technology for fast interplanetary travel had been perfected decades ago, but humanity had never ventured beyond their solar system. They had been too busy rebuilding their world after the climate wars, too focused on colonizing the nearby planets to reach for the stars. The Emergency Defense Council was already in session when Susan arrived at the underwater facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. Representatives from all major Earth governments sat around a circular table, their faces showing varying degrees of fear and determination. Admiral Carter stood at the head of the table, next to Dr. Olivia Wright, Earth's leading expert in theoretical xenolinguistics. A holographic display in the center showed the alien fleet, now passing Jupiter's orbit. They're moving at approximately 1/10 the speed of light, Dr. Wright was saying. At this rate, they'll reach Earth in less than 48 hours. Do we have any idea who they are or what they want? Asked the Chinese representative. Dr. Wright pushed her glasses up her nose. We've been analyzing some fragmentary transmissions between their ships. The language is unlike anything we've encountered, but we've managed to decipher parts of it. She pressed a button and alien voices filled the room. The sounds were harsh and clicking, almost mechanical. Our AI translators have been working non-stop, Dr. Wright continued. From what we can gather, they call themselves the Vexari. They appear to be part of something called the Galactic Empire, and they don't seem friendly. Susan leaned forward. How so? Dr. Wright's expression darkened. The transmissions contain repeated references to assimilation and primitive species. One phrase keeps appearing: Standard Conquest Protocol for Class 3 civilizations. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Carter cleared his throat. Intelligence Officer William Davis has something to add. A young man in a crisp uniform stood up. 27 days ago, we lost contact with our research outpost on Mars. We assumed it was a technical malfunction. We were wrong. He tapped his tablet, and new images appeared in the holographic display. The footage showed the Mars outpost, but something was wrong. Strange structures had been built around it, structures that pulsed with an eerie blue light. Alien figures moved among them, tall and insect-like. They've been in our solar system for almost a month, Davis said, watching, studying, preparing. Susan felt a chill run down her spine. They already have a base on Mars and we didn't even know. Admiral Carter nodded grimly. Which means they know exactly what they're dealing with. They've assessed our technology, our defenses, our capabilities, and they're still coming, the Russian representative said. Which means they believe they can defeat us easily. The room erupted in arguments about the best course of action. Some wanted to attempt peaceful communication again. Others insisted on an immediate military response. A few even suggested surrender. Admiral Carter silenced them with a raised hand. We have 48 hours to prepare for an enemy we know nothing about, with technology far beyond our own. I need solutions, not arguments. Susan spoke up. Admiral, permission to lead a reconnaissance mission. If they've established a base on Mars, we need to know more about what we're facing. Carter nodded. Granted. Take a small team. Be discreet. And the rest of the fleet? Asked the American representative. We prepare for war, Carter said simply. Humanity's first interstellar war. 6 hours later, Susan stood on the bridge of the Swift Arrow as it approached Mars under stealth mode. Her team consisted of 5 of Earth's best. Pilot Jack Nelson, Weapons Specialist Kate Brown, Engineer Sam Rogers, Science Officer Ben Taylor, and Medic Laura Ward. "Approaching the coordinates now, Commander," Jack said quietly, as if the aliens might hear them through the vacuum of space. The red planet loomed before them, but Susan's eyes were fixed on the alien base visible on its surface. The structure sprawled across what had once been the human research outpost, its architecture both beautiful and terrifying. "What's the plan, Commander?" Kate asked, her hand resting on her sidearm. Susan took a deep breath. The fate of humanity might depend on what they discovered here. "We go in, we gather intelligence, and we get out. No engagement unless absolutely necessary." She looked at her team, seeing the determination in their eyes. They were afraid only a fool wouldn't be, but they were ready. "The Vexari think we're primitive," Susan said. "They've underestimated us. That's their first mistake." As the swift arrow descended toward the Martian surface, Susan couldn't help but wonder if it would be the aliens' last mistake or humanity's. The red dust of Mars swirled around Susan and her team as they approached the alien base. They wore specialized stealth suits that masked their heat signatures and bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. "Stay close," Susan whispered, into her comm. "Remember, we observe only, no engagement." The Vexari base sprawled across the Martian landscape, a strange mix of crystalline towers and curved metallic structures. Alien ships, smaller than the fleet heading toward Earth but still imposing, sat on landing pads nearby. Ben Taylor, the science officer, scanned the structures with his equipment. "Commander, I'm picking up unusual energy readings. Their power source. It's like nothing we've ever seen." Susan nodded. "Record everything. Every bit of information could help us back on Earth." They moved carefully between shadow and shadow, approaching a low structure that seemed less guarded than the others. As they drew closer, they could see the Vexari for the first time up close. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall with segmented bodies covered in a chitinous exoskeleton. Their limbs bent at odd angles, and their faces featured multiple pairs of eyes arranged in patterns around a central mouth filled with needle-like teeth. Some Vexari wore complex armor that seemed to pulse with energy, while others moved about in simpler garments. "Are you seeing this?" Laura Ward, the medic, whispered. "Their physiology is incredible. Those exoskeletons must provide natural armor." Sam Rogers, the engineer, pointed to devices attached to the Vexari's heads. "Look at those neural interfaces. I bet that's how they coordinate so perfectly." A group of Vexari emerged from the building ahead, escorting what appeared to be human prisoners, researchers from the Mars outpost. The humans looked thin and terrified, shuffling along with their heads bowed. Kate Brown, the weapons specialist, tensed beside Susan. "Commander, we have to help them." "Not now," Susan said firmly, though it pained her. "We'd be captured or killed, and Earth would lose any advantage we might gain. We need to gather intelligence first." They watched as the prisoners were led into another building. Then, keeping to the shadows, the team made their way toward a structure that appeared to be a command center, judging by the number of Vexari entering and leaving. Sam discovered an access point in the rear of the building, a ventilation system of some kind. One by one they slipped inside, finding themselves in a dimly lit corridor with walls that seemed to pulse with their own internal light. "This way," Susan whispered, following her scanner's readings toward a concentration of energy signatures. They came to a large chamber filled with holographic displays and strange technology. Dozens of Vexari moved about, tapping at control panels and communicating in their clicking language. In the center of the room, a 3-dimensional map of Earth's solar system rotated slowly, with particular focus on Earth itself. Ben carefully recorded everything with his scanner, while Sam studied the alien technology. Laura observed the Vexari themselves, noting differences in their movements and appearances that suggested multiple subspecies or castes. Kate pointed to a Vexari who seemed to be giving orders. This one wore more elaborate armor and had additional neural interfaces attached to its head. "That must be their commander," she whispered. Susan nodded. The alien leader was gesturing at the Earth hologram, making sharp, aggressive movements. Other Vexari clicked in response, adjusting the displays to show Earth's defensive capabilities or what they knew of them. They're planning the attack, Susan realized. We need to get closer, hear what they're saying. Moving carefully around the perimeter of the room, they positioned themselves behind a bank of equipment near the central display. Dr. Wright's translation, algorithms had been uploaded to their scanners, allowing them to understand fragments of the Vexari speech. Primitive weapons. No significant threat, one Vexari was saying. Standard conquest protocol. Minimal resistance expected, said another. The leader made a sound that might have been laughter. The Class 3 assessment was generous. These humans have barely mastered space travel within their own system. Their technology is crude, their defenses negligible. What about their numbers? Asked a smaller Vexari. Irrelevant, the leader dismissed. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Our neural networks process combat data thousands of times faster than their primitive brains. Victory is certain. Susan exchanged glances with her team. The Vexari were dangerously overconfident, but they weren't wrong about the technological gap. Suddenly, a display lit up with an alert. A Vexari technician made urgent clicking sounds. Commander, we've detected an anomaly in Security Grid 7. Possible intrusion. The leader turned sharply. Impossible. The humans don't have stealth technology advanced enough to evade our sensors. Nevertheless, something triggered the proximity alerts, the technician insisted. The leader hissed in annoyance. Dispatch security drones, sector by sector scan. Susan tapped her comm once, the signal to retreat. Slowly, carefully, they began to back away from their position. They had what they came for. Confirmation of the Vexari's plans, and more importantly, insight into their psychology. The aliens were arrogant, dismissive of human capabilities, and utterly convinced of their superiority. They had almost reached the ventilation shaft when a security drone rounded the corner, a floating sphere with multiple sensor arrays protruding from its surface. It paused, as if confused by the stealth technology, then emitted a shrill alarm. "Run," Susan ordered, abandoning stealth for speed. They sprinted through the corridors as alarms blared throughout the base. Vexari security forces converged from multiple directions, firing weapons that shot pulses of energy. Kate turned and fired her sidearm, hitting a drone and sending it crashing to the ground. "Keep moving." They reached the ventilation shaft and scrambled through, emerging outside the command center. But more Vexari were converging on their position, and the landing pads where their ship waited seemed impossibly far away. "We're not going to make it on foot," Jack Nelson, the pilot, said grimly. Susan looked around desperately, then pointed to a small Vexari transport vessel sitting on a nearby pad. "There! Sam, can you fly that thing?" The engineer grinned. "I can try." They sprinted for the alien craft, dodging energy blasts. Sam reached it first, quickly studying the controls while the others provided covering fire. "I think I've got it," he said after a moment, pressing what appeared to be an activation sequence. The craft hummed to life, its engines glowing with an eerie blue light. The team piled in as Vexari forces closed in from all sides. "Hang on," Sam called as he manipulated the unfamiliar controls. The craft lurched upward, wobbling dangerously before stabilizing and shooting forward. Behind them, the Vexari base grew smaller as they raced toward their hidden ship. Susan looked at the data they'd collected, a grim smile forming on her face. "The Vexari are powerful," she said, "but they've made one critical mistake." "What's that?" Laura asked. "They think they know exactly what they're fighting," Susan replied. "They've classified us, categorized us, and dismissed us, but they've never actually fought humans before." As their stolen craft neared the location of the Swift Arrow, Susan knew that the coming battle would be like nothing the Vexari, or humanity, had ever experienced before. The Swift Arrow raced back to Earth, carrying information that might save humanity. Susan and her team worked through the journey, analyzing the data they had gathered about the Vexari. "Look at this," Ben said, pointing to his screen. Their neural interfaces connect all Vexari in a battlefield network. They share information instantly, coordinate perfectly. Sam nodded. That's why they move in such perfect formation. It's like they're all parts of one mind during combat. But that could be a weakness, Susan said thoughtfully. Systems can be jammed. Networks can be hacked. Kate was studying the recordings of Vexari physiology. Their exoskeletons are tough, but they have joints and sensory organs that look vulnerable. And did you notice how they all reacted when that alarm went off? They seemed almost pained by the sound. Sensitive hearing, Laura confirmed. And those multiple eyes suggest they might be vulnerable to bright flashes or certain light frequencies. The Swift Arrow docked at Earth Defense Headquarters, where Admiral Carter was waiting. Susan handed him their findings. We don't have much time, she said. The main fleet will reach Earth within 24 hours. Then we'd better get to work, Carter replied. The full defense fleet is assembled. Captain George Robinson is leading our main battle group. In the war room, the Earth's military leaders gathered around a holographic display showing the approaching Vexari fleet. Captain Robinson stood tall, his weathered face serious as he studied the enemy positions. They're coming in a standard attack formation, he noted. Very organized, very predictable. They're not expecting us to put up much of a fight. And we can use that against them, Susan said. She explained what they had learned about the Vexari, their reliance on neural networks, their apparent sensitivity to certain sounds and lights, their rigid thinking and overconfidence. Dr. Allen Foster, Earth's leading weapons engineer, listened intently. So their neural interfaces operate on specific electromagnetic frequencies. Interesting. Very interesting. Can you do something with that? Admiral Carter asked. Foster's eyes lit up. Maybe. We can't match their firepower, but if we could disrupt their neural networks. How quickly can you develop something? Carter pressed. Give me 6 hours, Foster replied, already heading for his lab. Carter turned to the assembled leaders. We need to buy time. Captain Robinson, your battle group will engage the Vexari fleet when they reach lunar orbit. Your mission is not to win, but to confuse and delay. Robinson nodded grimly. Understood, sir. Susan spoke up. Admiral, I'd like to lead a special operation. If Dr. Foster can develop a device to disrupt their neural networks, we'll need to get it close to their command ships. Approved, Carter said without hesitation. Choose your team. As the meeting broke up, General Patricia Summers stepped forward. Her gray hair was cut short, and her eyes reflected decades of military experience. We're outgunned and outmanned, she said bluntly. But humans have a long history of winning against superior forces. We don't play by the rules, we adapt, we improvise. She turned to Susan. Commander Miller, I want civilian hackers working with your team. If these aliens rely on networked systems, let's show them what human hackers can do to networks. Susan smiled. I know just the person. 6 hours later, Susan stood in Dr. Foster's lab with her team. Foster held up a small device that pulsed with a soft blue light. This emitter produces an electromagnetic pulse tuned specifically to the frequency range used by Vexari neural interfaces, he explained. It won't damage their technology permanently, but it will create noise in their network, like static on an old radio. The closer you get to their ships, the more effective it will be. Will it affect humans? Susan asked. Foster shook his head. Our brains don't process information the same way. We might feel a slight tingling sensation, but nothing serious. Kate examined the device. How many do you have? We've manufactured 50, Foster replied. Not enough to use against their entire fleet, but enough for a targeted strike against their command structure. Meanwhile, Captain Robinson stood on the bridge of the EDF Defiant as it led Earth's battle group toward the approaching Vexari fleet. His ships were arranged in a standard defensive formation, exactly what the Vexari would expect. All ships, prepare to engage, he ordered. Then, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, he added, and remember the plan. Let's show these aliens something they've never seen before. The Vexari fleet emerged from behind the moon, their massive ships dwarfing Earth's vessels. Energy readings spiked as they charged their weapons. They're targeting us, Captain, his tactical officer reported. Robinson nodded. Wait for it, Wait. Now. Execute. Pattern chaos. Instantly, Earth's neat formation dissolved. Ships scattered, in seemingly random directions, engines flaring as they executed wild, unpredictable maneuvers. The Vexari fired and missed. Their carefully calculated targeting solutions were useless against ships that refused to follow predictable paths. Aboard the Vexari command ship, Admiral Zikathara clicked his mandibles in irritation. What are they doing? This is not standard combat doctrine. His tactical officer's head tendrils twitched nervously. They're not following any known pattern, Admiral. Our targeting systems cannot predict their movements. Impossible, Zikathara snapped. They are a Class 3 civilization. Their tactics should be primitive and straightforward. Back on Earth, Susan and her team boarded their ship along with civilian hacker Ryan Cooper, a young man with bright eyes and fingers that seemed to fly over keyboard interfaces. The Vexari ships are networked not just for neural interfaces but for all systems, Ryan explained excitedly. Life support, weapons, navigation, everything. If we can access their network, we can create chaos, Susan finished. Their ship launched, joining the battle already raging in space. Captain Robinson's unorthodox tactics had confused the Vexari, but the aliens were adapting. Their superior firepower was beginning to tell. We need to move fast, Susan told her pilot. Take us in close to their flagship. As they approached, weaving through energy beams and debris, Ryan worked feverishly at his console. I'm detecting their network signals. Strong encryption, but there are patterns, weaknesses. Susan watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. Earthships were being hit, some critically damaged, but they were also scoring hits against the Vexari, something the aliens clearly hadn't expected. We're in position, the pilot announced as they slipped under the massive hull of the Vexari flagship. Susan activated the comm. All teams, deploy Foster devices now. Across the battlefield, small Earth vessels moved into position near key Vexari ships. The devices were activated simultaneously. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, Vexari ships began to drift out of formation. Some fired at random, missing their targets by wide margins. Others stopped firing altogether. On the Vexari flagship, Admiral Zekathara clutched his head as pain lanced through his neural interface. The battle data, normally so clear and precise, dissolved into meaningless noise. Around him, his crew writhed, in similar discomfort. What is happening? He demanded, but no one could answer. The perfect coordination that made the Vexari so formidable had been shattered, and as the aliens struggled to make sense of their suddenly chaotic world, Susan gave the order that would forever change the course of the battle. Now, Ryan. The hacker pressed a final key. Virus deployed. The virus spread through the Vexari network like wildfire. Ryan had designed it specifically to target their command systems, and it worked better than anyone had hoped. Ship after ship lost control of weapons, life support, and navigation systems. The perfect formation of the Vexari fleet dissolved into chaos. Admiral Zakathara slammed his clawed fist against his command chair. The pain in his head was unbearable. The neural interface that had always been his greatest strength now a source of agony. Around him, his crew struggled with similar pain. Disconnect from the network, he ordered, his voice strained. All ships, sever neural connections. But his orders couldn't get through. The communication systems were compromised, broadcasting conflicting commands across the fleet. Some Vexari captains, desperate to escape the electronic assault, manually disconnected their ships from the network. Others, unable to function without the neural link they had relied on for so long, drifted aimlessly. On the bridge of the EDF Defiant, Captain Robinson watched in amazement as the mighty Vexari fleet fell into disarray. He had expected their plan to cause some confusion, but nothing like this. All ships, concentrate fire on their flagship, he ordered. Target propulsion systems, Earth's. Ships moved in perfect coordination. Not because they shared a neural network, but because they had trained together, learned to trust each other, and could adapt to changing circumstances. The Vexari, cut off from their network and unused to making independent decisions, were slow to respond. Susan watched from her ship as the Earth fleet pressed its advantage. "It's working," she said, her voice filled with cautious hope. "We need to push harder. Ryan, can you access their weapon systems?" The hacker's fingers danced across his keyboard. "Working on it. Their security is adapting, but so am I." On the Vexari flagship, Admiral Zekathara tore the neural interface from his head, ignoring the pain as connections were severed. Around him, other high-ranking officers did the same. "This is impossible," his second-in-command gasped. "How can primitives do this to us? We've conquered hundreds of worlds." "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered," Zekathara growled. "No formations, no standard tactics, and these attacks on our neural network. This was not in our intelligence reports." A junior officer approached, trembling slightly. "Admiral, we've lost contact with 27 ships. 15 more report. Critical system failures and—" He hesitated. "Speak," Zekathara demanded. "Our weapon systems are firing on their own. 3 of our ships have been hit by friendly fire." Zekathara's multiple eyes widened in shock. In the 300 cycles of his military career, he had never experienced anything like this. The Vexari Empire had conquered countless civilizations, most more advanced than humans, yet none had managed to turn the Empire's strengths against it so effectively. Susan's ship maneuvered close to one of the larger Vexari vessels. "Deploy boarding teams," she ordered. "We need to gather as much intelligence as we can while their systems are compromised." Teams of Earth soldiers, equipped with Foster's disruptor devices, launched toward the Vexari ships. They encountered little resistance. The Vexari soldiers, confused and in pain from their malfunctioning neural interfaces, were easily subdued. Lieutenant Lisa Zhao led one of these teams onto a Vexari science vessel. They moved swiftly through the alien corridors, stunning the disoriented Vexari they encountered. "The command center should be ahead," Lisa told her team. "Remember, we need their navigation data and any information about the wider empire." They burst into the ship's command center to find the Vexari officers frantically trying to regain control of their vessel. Lisa activated her disruptor device, and the aliens collapsed in pain, clutching their heads. "Secure the room," she ordered. "Download everything from their main computer." Meanwhile, Captain Robinson's fleet had surrounded the Vexari flagship. The massive alien vessel fired sporadically, but its shots went wide, missing the Earth ships entirely. "Their targeting systems are completely compromised," Robinson's tactical officer reported. Robinson nodded. "Press the advantage. Target their engines and weapons arrays." Earth ships fired in concert, their weapons striking precise points on the Vexari flagship. Explosions bloomed along its hull as critical systems were hit. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Zekathara watched in horror as his ship's damage reports flooded in. Without the neural network, his crew was slow, inefficient, unable to coordinate their responses. "This can't be happening," his second-in-command whispered. "They're just humans. Primitives." Zekathara turned on him, rage in all 4 of his eyes. "Clearly, our assessment was wrong. We underestimated them. A mistake I will not repeat." He turned to his navigation officer. "Prepare to withdraw. We must regroup and reassess." "Admiral," protested his weapons officer. "Retreat? Before humans? The Emperor will have our heads. He will have our entire species if we lose this fleet due to pride." Zekathara snapped back. "We are fighting an enemy we do not understand, using tactics we have never encountered. The strategic choice is clear." He activated the emergency communication system, bypassing the compromised network. "All ships, this is Admiral Zekathara. Disengage and withdraw immediately. Return to Rally Point Sigma. This is not a defeat. It is a strategic reassessment." Across the battlefield, Vexari ships began to break away from the fight. Some moved in coordination, others seemed to drift away randomly, their navigation systems still compromised by Ryan's virus. Susan watched from her ship, barely able to believe what she was seeing. "They're retreating," she said softly. "We actually did it." Ryan looked up from his console, his face pale with exhaustion but his eyes bright with triumph. Their central command just issued a full withdrawal order. They're running. But the SCI-FI retreat was not orderly. Vexari ships, some still under the influence of Foster's disruptors and Ryan's virus, collided with each other. Others fired randomly as weapon systems misfired, hitting their own vessels. The once mighty fleet was in complete disarray. Admiral Carter's voice came over the comm. "All ships, hold position, let them go." "Sir?" Susan questioned. "Shouldn't we pursue?" "Not yet, Commander," Carter replied. "We've won this battle, but we need time to prepare for what comes next. The Vexari will be back, and next time, they'll be ready for our tricks." As the alien ships disappeared into the darkness of space, Susan turned to her team. They were exhausted but alive, and humanity had survived its first encounter with the Galactic Empire. "What now?" Jack asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Susan looked out at the stars, where the last of the Vexari ships were vanishing from sight. "Now we learn everything we can from the ships we've captured. We prepare, and we make sure that when they come back, we're ready." Across the solar system, humans watched in amazement as news of the victory spread. Against all odds, humanity had faced a technologically superior enemy and won. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through adaptability, creativity, and the uniquely human ability to think outside established patterns. But as Susan had said, this was only the first battle. The war was just beginning. 6 months after the battle, Earth had changed. Ships salvaged from the Vexari fleet had provided humanity with technology they might have taken decades to develop on their own. The captured alien vessels were being studied, reverse-engineered, and integrated into Earth's growing defense fleet. Susan stood on the observation deck of the new Earth Defense Station, watching as workers in spacesuits attached Vexari-inspired shield generators to the outer hull. The station hung in orbit above Earth, the first of 12 planned to create a defensive network around the planet. Admiral Carter joined her, his face more lined than before, but his eyes still sharp. "Impressive, isn't it? 6 months ago we could barely defend our own planet. Now we're preparing to take the fight to them." "Do you think they'll come back?" Susan asked, though she already knew the answer. Carter nodded grimly. "Without question. We humiliated them, and from what we've learned from the captured ships' databases, the Vexari Empire doesn't forgive or forget. They'll return with a larger force, better prepared for our tactics. Then we'd better be ready," Susan replied. In a laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Foster worked with a team of scientists studying Vexari technology. The alien devices were spread across tables, partially disassembled as human engineers tried to unlock their secrets. "Their power systems are at least 50 years ahead of ours," Foster explained to General Summers as she toured the facility. "But we're making progress. The neural interfaces are particularly interesting." He held up a small device, similar to the Vexari design but modified for human use. "We can't use them the way the Vexari do. Our brains aren't compatible. But we've adapted them to enhance reaction times and coordinate tactical data between ships." Summers nodded approvingly. "How soon can we deploy them?" "We're already testing prototypes with Special Forces teams," Foster replied. "Lieutenant Zhao's squad is training with them now." In a training facility on the moon, Lisa Zhao led her team through combat exercises. Each soldier wore a modified version of the Vexari neural enhancer, allowing them to share tactical information without speaking. Unlike the Vexari system, the human version didn't link minds directly. It only shared specific combat data, protecting the users from the vulnerabilities that had doomed the aliens. "Faster," Lisa urged, as her team moved through the simulated Vexari ship. "Remember, they'll be expecting our tactics now. We need to evolve, adapt." Her second-in-command, Paul Wilson, nodded. "They'll have countermeasures for the disruptors and the virus." "Exactly," Lisa said. "Which is why we're developing new ones. The Vexari think in straight lines. We need to think around corners." In orbit around Mars, Captain Robinson supervised the construction of an early warning network. Using modified Vexari sensors, the system would detect approaching ships long before they reached Earth. giving humanity precious time to prepare. The outer perimeter is operational, his engineering officer reported. We've got detection capabilities, extending all the way to Jupiter's orbit now. Robinson nodded with satisfaction. Good. What about the automated defense platforms? The first 20 are online. They're programmed to respond to any Vexari signature with random evasive patterns, should confuse their targeting systems just like our ships did. In a secure communications center, Ryan Cooper worked with a team of the world's best hackers, studying the Vexari computer language they had captured during the battle. Their code is elegant but predictable, Ryan explained to Susan during her inspection tour. They build perfect systems with perfect defenses against expected attacks, but they don't account for the unexpected. He showed her a simulation on his screen, where a human virus overwhelmed Vexari defenses. We're developing new cyber weapons that will target their communication systems first, then life support. Next time, they won't just retreat, they'll surrender. Susan nodded, but her expression remained serious. Don't underestimate them, Ryan. They'll have learned from their defeat. They won't make the same mistakes twice. Neither will we, Ryan promised. In what had once been the UN General Assembly, now converted into Earth's unified defense headquarters, representatives from all nations gathered to discuss the next phase of preparations. Admiral Carter stood at the podium, addressing the assembled leaders. The Vexari database has given us invaluable information, he said. We now know that the Empire controls over 300 worlds across this arm of the galaxy. They've been expanding for millennia, conquering species more advanced than our own. He pressed a button and a holographic map appeared showing the Vexari Empire's territory and Earth's position at its edge. But we've also learned something else, something that gives us hope. The map zoomed in on various worlds marked in different colors. These are worlds that the Vexari have conquered but not fully assimilated. Species who continue to resist, in ways large and small. Potential allies. A murmur ran through the assembly. The idea that humanity wasn't alone in its fight against the Empire changed everything. We've begun work on a long-range communication device based on Vexari technology, Carter continued. Our goal is to contact these other species, to form an alliance against our common enemy. Dr. Wright stepped forward, taking over the presentation. We've already begun translating the major languages used in the Empire. When we make contact, we'll be able to communicate. In a shipyard orbiting the moon, Susan walked through the corridors of Earth's newest vessel. Larger than any ship humans had built before, it incorporated the best of human ingenuity and Vexari technology. Its name was painted proudly on the hull, EDF Defiance. She'll be ready for her maiden voyage next week, the shipyard director told Susan as they toured the bridge. The first ship designed specifically to operate in deep space beyond our solar system. Susan ran her hand over what would be the captain's chair. And her mission? Exploration and diplomacy, the director replied. Admiral Carter wants to send her to the nearest potentially friendly world, to make first contact, not with the Vexari, but with those who might stand with us against them. Susan nodded, feeling the weight of what was to come. The battle they had won was just the beginning. The Vexari would return, and when they did, they would come with a force designed to crush human resistance. But they would find a humanity transformed, no longer confined to one solar system, no longer limited by their own technology. A humanity that had taken its first steps into the galactic community, not as conquerors, but as liberators. As she looked out the viewport at Earth, hanging in the blackness of space, Susan thought about how strange it was. The Vexari had come to conquer a primitive species confined to one small corner of the galaxy. Instead, they had awakened a force that might one day challenge their empire. The humans were coming, and they were bringing something the galaxy had not seen in a long time. Hope.